and I go away. And the reason I do that is because if I watch and I see something I don't like and I tune away, I know I'm not ready to come back and look at it objectively yet. You know what I mean? I need some, because I mean, I think there will be a time when I'd like to come back and help and contribute in the back if need be. But to do that, I feel like I need to have a real washed, clean, objective, constructive point of view. And so for me to do, for me personally, it's even like while I was doing it, while I was working, I did not watch that much because I always felt like, you're too close to it. You can't be objective. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I had certain people that I could ask that were just sort of casual viewers. You know what I mean? Because again, the way you and I, and I hope it's okay. I say you and I, we're wrestling fans. You know what I mean?
Right.
We are one and the same. That's I was just a guy that was one that then grew up into one. You know what I mean? That's the only difference between you and me. But there's fewer of us than there are casual fans. I mean, casual fans make up, our masses. I mean, that's that's who, makes up the millions and millions that watch on Monday night. And so you have to sort of, you got to keep guys like you and me, but then you want to attract more of the others, and that's a pretty delicate balance to walk. You know what I mean? And so to try to do that without alienating your base is sometimes tough. And so I'm not quite able to see myself as the casual. I'm still the base. So I think it's easier right now for me. It's better if I don't watch and I just stay away from it for a while, and then I feel like I can come back in and be able to give a real constructive point of view. If that, that's a long-winded answer, and I don't know if it makes any sense.
A great answer, because it also explains a lot as to why, there could be so much negativity towards the product from the diehards because we're too close to it. We live it, eat it, sleep it, breathe it, and it's why we see things today and we go, oh, well, they would have done this way 10 years ago, and so everything they do now, people complain. And they say, we've seen this before. Well, if you've been watching the same movie over and over for 50 times, you get tired of it by a certain point, and it's not as good as it was the first time.
Right.
And
again, I was watching, I don't know, was it the Adam Sandler movie with Jennifer Aniston, and they, it's a movie that they work together and they're both trying to find other people, and of course that at the end of it, they're the ones that are going to get together. Now that movie, that idea has been done in movies 100,000 times.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they did it, and they did it well, and it was interesting. And that's, we're a tough nut to crack. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't mind if something's sort of redone as long as it's done well, and that's where I think maybe me and maybe the diehard hardcores, we got to part ways a little bit, because I just want it to be good. I mean, what bothers me is shoddy work. I guess. I mean, and that's probably, I guess, because I've been in there, and I guess I can see stuff. To me, I don't like hearing a guy tell me that he loves the business when I can look at him and hear him say it and go, no, you don't. I don't feel his love, his passion dripping off him as he says that. You know what I mean? And I guess that's where, to me, and I don't even know if, I don't know if fans are aware that, that's not what they're getting. I mean, I'm probably not making sense, but I think a lot of what's hurting the product, even in y'all's eyes, I don't think I think a lot of, the folks have been picking guys like, oh, he's got talent, he's got to go with this guy, got to go that way. They do it just to do it, but I mean, some of the guys that I see picked, I know those dudes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they come to work, they do their job, and then when they're done, they're done. You know what I mean? And
right.
And I don't, and it's like you can, and I hear, and the reason I can watch him on TV and go, he doesn't care, he doesn't love it like we did, and I think that makes a difference. I think it makes a huge difference, and I think that's think I don't know. My feeling is that's what you guys are waiting for. I think that's what the business needs, and then the guys that do feel that way, you have sort of decided you don't like. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And that's a tough hill to climb. So it's the business is. I do understand it's in a little bit of a flux, but as you mentioned earlier, we're coming off. We've lost. A lot of the. There's been a lot of there's a new influx, and for us guys that have been watching for a while, it's like having to get used to a new food. You know what I mean? It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while, and that's just, they just got to keep going out there, keep going, and and once you see them battle through, you want to see these guys battle through some wars, you want to see them come back from some injuries, you want to know that they want it. I think it'll just take some time.
No, I agree with that, and I think that, for me personally, I grew up watching obviously in the late '80s, early '90s. I really feel like the thing that's really depleted the business is the fact that there is no territory system. You don't have a guy, and you mentioned this earlier, learning his craft. He's just kind of thrown to the wolves. And, I did hear a rumor going around that they're looking in the WWE at revamping their developmental system down at FCW. And last I heard, they were talking about sending both Kevin Nash and Shawn Waltman down to kind of help evaluate the talent. And I think that's a good move.
Yeah, that was a Triple H move, from what I understand.
Yeah, well, I mean, without giving away too much, he's going to be revamping that, and yeah, you've got there are many of us that feel the exact same way, and that's because that is an invaluable. I mean, the way I learned, man, you can't beat that. I mean, I worked with so many different guys, so many different styles, 7 days a week for 2.5, 3 years before I got there. And I mean, just countless different styles, and then you can make a real objective, decision on like, hey, this is the kind of style I'd like to have. Little of this, little of that, touch of that, dash of this, a pinch of that. And so, yeah, and I think that is one of the things that he really wants to try to do. And again, for all the heat and all the crap that people dumped into his lap, many years ago, which of course now is coincidentally, conveniently changing because now he's, because everyone's like, oh damn, he's going to be running stuff someday. He's a good guy to have at the helm of doing that because he does get it, and that is my understanding too, that they're gonna that they are gonna try to revamp that and try to make sure that the guys can go out. Again, whether it's, I'm just throwing stuff out there, like go to Japan, go over and work in Europe, go and, it's like one of those things, and I know it doesn't get talked about much, but I mean, the few times like Regal and I got to work with each other, I loved working with Steve because it was just so different. You know what I mean? It was just a totally different style than absolutely anything else I ever did. And I mean, it was a handful of times here and there on different live events. But he and I were like two kids in a candy store because it was giddy and fun, and he got the opportunity to be in there with somebody that he wasn't having to sort of teach, that he could just sort of do whatever, and, he could punch me and walk away for 10 minutes, and then when he came back, he'd still be there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And and that's one of the things that, the guys, again, it's not their fault, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The young talent's heart is in the right place, but you can really, like if you got to play, 5-card draw with like 3 cards, you're not going to do as well. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing, and the young talent now, they all train together. They all train in the same place, so it's pretty tough on them to sort of come up, to end up any other way than sort of all looking the same. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'd be like taking the show Friends and trying to put 7 new people in there and still call it Friends. It would be totally different.
Right. And so that's the thing. I mean, I think people are getting aware of that. There needs to be some restructure in there, and that's why I guess I was telling everybody, like, and the guys you're watching now, it's going to take some time. I mean, I certainly as a fan, I want to know that my guy or my guys are warriors. I want to know that that they eat, sleep, and drink this stuff. And I want to know that, like, if one of them gets punched in the face, gets his nose broken, you know what I mean? That he's not going to be back in 2 weeks because he's got to go get plastic surgery. I want to know that it's come out next Monday, you know, even though he was a handsome-looking dude, looking beat up, scruffed up, and not really worry about it. And I also want a guy that when it comes to nut cutting time is going to throw down and fight somebody and not hit him with a spinning, whirly, dirly, flip-de-doo. You know what I mean?
That's my finisher. That's my finisher, the swirly, whirly, flip-de-doo.
I'm just saying. I mean, you know, again, yada, yada, yada. I don't like you don't like me. Yeah, okay, but boom, I'll hit you with fine, whatever. Your mother's a whore. Okay, well, now I got to punch you in the face. You know what I mean? One more thing. They go there, and you either punch them in the face, but you don't go, oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to hit you with a big swinging, throw you in the ropes and hit you with a swinging, whirly-dirly, fizzy, whatever. You know what I mean? You know, you punch him in the face, and I think that's something that's missing too. That's just psychology, and that'll come with time. You know, that'll come with time and more experience. You know, where they'll know that again, guys like you guys, you know, it's like, hey, I dig your cool moves. Okay, now I want to see you beat somebody up. You know, and they gotta learn to know. You know, they gotta learn to, you know, what we call it. It's like, got to learn to feel it. You know, they got to learn to know when you, as a viewer, you as a fan, want us to turn it up. I mean, that's what the job is, you know, getting a sense of what you guys want, giving it to you, and then when you guys change what you want, you got to know when they're changing. You got to give it to them, and that ain't easy to do. You know what I mean? You know, that's why it's called psychology and trying to get into the minds of 5 million people or 70,000 people in a building all at the same time while you're doing something. You know, it takes some time to learn how to do.
You know, speaking of, you know, some of the talents you were just talking about, that, you know, you want to be warriors, that you want to go out there and, you know, take a move, and, you know, if it hurts, come back next week and look like they've been beaten up. You know, two guys that really stand out in my mind, you know, on the current roster would be guys like Daniel Bryan and Sheamus. You know, Sheamus, I love Sheamus because if you don't sell for Sheamus, he's going to make you sell for him.
Yeah.
I love that. You don't see enough of that in the business.
He's a throwback, Bill. That guy, he is a throwback to the 1980 cowardly heel, and he does it so well. He's perfect.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and that's I mean, he's a good kid, but you know what? The thing about him, again, I mean, he was there obviously before I left. You know, he's at you every second coming up. You know. And the most important thing is because a lot of them do this. We watch my match, you know, and then you watch it. They come back and you give them your 2 cents. The biggest thing of Sheamus is that he listens. You know what I mean? You say something to him, dude, he's doing it. You know, or if he doesn't like it, you know, and it doesn't work, he's not going to do it, or tell you. I don't know if that works. You know, you know, as you said, he's a throwback. He knows when to listen and when to go with his own instinct. And, you know, you've got one or the other out there most of the time now. You've got guys that, one, you can tell them stuff and they ain't going to do it no matter what because they think they know everything. And then you've got guys that are just going to do absolutely everything you say, even if it doesn't work. You know what I mean? And so that's sort of the tough spot that they're in. You know, you need that. It's pretty simple at the end of the day. It's a man's business, and the fact of the matter is, you know, a man says yes when it's time to say yes, and he says no when it's time to say no. And you need to not be afraid if, you know, you look at Shawn Michaels and go, I don't think that works for me, Shawn. You know what I mean? And be smart enough and secure enough to know that's not going to bother me. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, it's a whole other thing to go, that's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard, you dipshit. You know, then I might, you know, then it might bother me a little bit. But, but you know, I mean, there's a way to go about it, and And again, there's too many guys are doing